ever feel like learning English is just this massive, overwhelming thing? Like climbing a mountain?
Yeah.
What if there was a way to kind of like sneak up the side, almost without realizing you're even doing it, just by listening to music you love anyway?
I like that idea.
That's kind of what we're looking at today.
Okay, cool.
This whole idea of learning English through music.
Through music and song lyrics.
Song lyrics, exactly. We've
Yeah.
got like a briefing document,
Yeah.
a study guide with a bunch of exercises in it, and then a really comprehensive article.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is this idea that kind of comes out of all of them.
Yeah.
That mixing the universal language of music
Right.
with the global reach of English
Yeah.
creates this surprisingly powerful way to learn.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it seems so simple, right?
Yeah, it seems almost too obvious.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
But we're going to dig into kind of like what makes that work.
Yeah.
And our goal today is to pull out like the most valuable insights.
Right. So you can really use this.
Good.
Because I think a lot of people maybe have tried it.
Yeah.
You know, you hear a song and you're like, oh, I learned a new word.
Right.
But we're going to get into like...
Take it to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. The next level stuff.
Yeah.
The core argument I think that's really interesting that comes through in all this material is that learning English through music isn't just a little bit of fun.
Right.
Although it is fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually like a really genuinely effective method.
Yeah.
That's backed by a lot of research and thinking.
Absolutely. And what I find fascinating is that it ties into so many different things.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the cognitive science, like how our brains work,
Right.
how we learn, how we remember things.
Yeah.
You've got psychology in there, the role of emotions, the motivation,
Yeah.
and then just the structure of language itself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How music kind of like mirrors the patterns of language. It's
Yeah.
really quite remarkable. It's not just like tapping your foot to a beat.
Right.
The stuff that we've seen
Yeah.
shows that it can help you in so many ways, like build vocabulary, really nail down grammar, make your listening skills super sharp,
Right.
even improve your pronunciation and like give you a feel for different cultures.
Absolutely.
So it's way more than just like casual listening.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's active learning,
Yeah.
engagement.
So why don't we start
Okay.
with this idea that music and our brains just seem to go together?
Okay. Yeah.
Like when it comes to learning, why is that?
Well, one of the most interesting things that the material highlights is this idea of memory
Yeah.
and how music seems to like stick in our heads. You know, you can remember a song from years ago,
Oh, yeah.
but you might struggle to remember what you had for breakfast this morning.
Truth.
Right. So there's something about music that just makes it memorable.
Yeah.
And this is where those catchy tunes come in.
Right.
They act like these little mental hooks,
Mm-hmm.
and they make the words and phrases that go along with them much easier to recall.
Yeah, I see.
It's like the melody gives your brain something to grab onto,
Right.
and the words just kind of come along for the ride.
So they're like attached to it.
They're connected.
Yeah.
And there's actually a quote from one of the pieces
Yeah.
that sums this up really nicely.
Okay.
It says, when words are set to music, the melody provides a structure and a hook that makes the associated text far easier to recall than isolated words or phrases from a list.
Oh, that's a good quote. Yeah.
Right. So it's not just about memorizing individual words.
Right.
It's about how they fit into this larger musical framework.
Yeah. So it's like you're learning in context almost.
Exactly. Context is key.
Okay.
And that context is provided by the music.
And it's not just the tune itself, though.
Right.
It's also the way that songs repeat themselves.
That's crucial too. Yeah.
That seems to be really important.
Absolutely.
Think about like a chorus of a song.
Right.
You hear it over and over again. It's exactly. And it's not just the chorus.
Okay.
It's verses, lines, musical patterns.
Yeah. Motifs.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
It's all about repetition.
Repetition.
And that's how music works, right?
Yeah.
It's built on these recurring elements.
Right.
And what's cool is that this kind of natural inherent repetition in music
Yeah.
becomes a really effective way to drill vocabulary and grammar into your long-term memory.
Yeah. It's like built-in study.
It is. It's like built-in study, but it doesn't feel like studying.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like fun.
Exactly, because it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there with flashcards.
Right.
You're listening to music you love.
Yeah.
And without even realizing it,
Yeah.
you're absorbing these language patterns.
Getting that repetition in.
You are.
Yeah.
So it's a really clever way to reinforce your learning.
So you could listen to your favorite song
Yeah.
100 times and not even realize
Right.
how much you're picking up.
Yeah, and you'd still be learning.
Yeah.
which is pretty awesome.
when you think about it.
And it's not just how our brains remember things, right?
All right.
Emotion seems to be a big part of this,
That's
too.
huge, yeah.
Like, how does emotion play into language learning?
Well, music is incredibly powerful when it comes to emotions,
Oh, yeah.
right? I mean, think about a song that gives you chills
Yeah.
or makes you want to dance
Right.
or maybe even cry a little.
Yeah.
Music has this amazing ability to evoke these really strong feelings in us.
Mm-hmm.
And this connection between music and emotion actually plays a really important role in how we learn.
Interesting.
Yeah, so basically when you connect with a song on an emotional level,
Okay.
you're more likely to pay attention to the words.
Okay.
You're more invested in understanding what the song is trying to say.
Right.
And this makes the whole learning experience much more engaging and memorable.
Right.
There's this quote from one of the sources that says, when you connect emotionally with a song, you are more invested in understanding its message. The lyrics, this emotional engagement enhances focus and makes the learning experience more meaningful and memorable.
I like that. Yeah.
Right. So it's not just about dry information.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with the song on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And that emotional connection makes the language stick.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like if a song makes you feel something,
Mm-hmm.
you're naturally going to want to understand what it's saying.
Yeah.
And the more you understand it, the more you learn.
It's almost like it bypasses some of your defenses.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
If you're really into it emotionally,
Yeah.
then you're just like, oh, I want to know what this means.
Right.
And you don't even think of it as like, oh, I'm studying.
It's not a chore.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
And choosing music that you genuinely love
Yes. This is
seems to be like another key point here.
It is if you don't like the music. You're not going to want to listen to it.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
And if you're not listening to it,
You're not learning.
you're not learning. Yeah.
So finding music that you actually enjoy
Yeah.
is essential for staying motivated and engaged.
So it turns learning into something that's like fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It should be fun.
Yeah.
It should be something that you look forward to.
It shouldn't be a chore.
Right.
You're already listening to music anyway, so
Yeah.
why not make it something that helps you?
Exactly. Choose music that you love
Yeah.
and let the learning happen naturally.
So it's not just about memory. It's not just about emotion.
Right.
The other thing that comes out in all this material
Yeah.
is that music gives you a taste of the language as it's actually used.
Yes.
Authentic language.
Like in the real world.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So this is where music really shines as a learning tool.
Okay.
Because unlike some of the more formal language you might find in textbooks,
Yeah.
like grammatically perfect sentences.
Yeah. Very proper vocabulary.
Yeah.
Song lyrics often use the kind of language that people actually use in everyday conversations.
Right. So more casual.
More casual. Yeah.
More like how people actually talk.
Exactly. So
Right.
you're getting exposed to real-world vocabulary, everyday expressions,
Yeah.
slang,
Yeah.
idioms,
Yeah.
all the little things
Yeah.
that make a language sound natural and authentic.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they pointed out in the material we looked at
Yeah.
is that songs often use these contractions,
Yeah.
like gonna and wanna and don't,
Right.
which are so common in spoken English,
Right.
but you might not always see them in textbooks.
Yeah.
So music gives you this opportunity to hear the language as it's actually spoken.
So you're not just learning like a textbook version of English.
Right.
You're actually learning,
The real deal,
the real deal.
the way people actually communicate.
Okay.
And that's incredibly valuable.
And I think that's one of the things that textbooks miss a lot
They do.
is like they don't teach you all these little,
Nuances.
the
The little informal bits. The
Yeah.
ways that people actually express themselves.
shortcuts.
The shortcuts, yeah.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
And music is full of that.
Music has all of that.
It does.
Okay.
So it's a really rich source of authentic language.
And it's not just the words and the grammar.
No, it's not.
You were talking to this earlier.
Yeah.
Like it teaches you other things about the language too.
Absolutely. The music has this inherent rhythm, right?
Yeah.
And that rhythm is reflected in the way we speak.
Oh, okay.
So by listening to music,
yeah.
you're kind of like subconsciously absorbing these patterns of stress and intonation,
Oh, interesting.
which is how our voices rise and fall when we speak.
Right.
And these patterns are different in every language.
Mm-hmm.
So by listening to English music,
Yeah.
you're training your ear to pick up on the specific rhythms and intonation patterns of English.
Okay, so it's not just about understanding the words.
No, it's about understanding how those words are delivered,
Yeah, how they sound.
how they sound. Exactly.
Okay.
And this is something that's really hard to teach in a traditional classroom setting,
Yeah.
but music does it naturally.
So you pick it up without even realizing it.
You absorb it through osmosis almost.
It's like learning by doing.
Yeah. It's like learning by listening.
Or listening.
And enjoying.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not just passively listening.
Right.
You're actively engaging with the music.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
And it's multisensory, right?
It is.
Because you're hearing.
You're hearing the music.
You might be watching a video.
Right. You might be watching a music video.
You might be reading the lyrics.
Exactly. So you're using your eyes and your ears.
Yeah.
And if you're singing along,
yeah,
you're using your voice and your body.
Right.
So it's engaging all these different senses.
So you're much more likely to remember it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it such a powerful learning experience.
Yeah.
You're creating these strong pathways in your brain
Yeah.
by using all these different senses.
And we can't forget
Right.
that songs come from somewhere.
That's right. They don't exist in a vacuum.
They come from a culture.
They do. They're products of culture.
Yeah.
And they reflect the values and the beliefs and the experiences of the people who create them.
So it's not just about the language itself.
No,
It's about the whole context around the language.
Right. It's about understanding the people and the places and the stories behind the music.
Okay, so how does that help someone who's learning English?
Well, by paying attention to the lyrics,
Yeah.
you can start to understand these cultural nuances.
Okay.
You can see what's important to people,
Yeah.
what they care about,
Mm-hmm.
what they're struggling with,
Yeah.
what they're celebrating.
Right.
And this could give you a much deeper understanding of the language.
So it's not just about grammar and vocabulary.
No, it's about the heart of the language.
Yeah, it's about like the feeling behind it.
Yeah, the soul of the language.
Yeah.
And music is a direct line to that.
So the science seems to be there.
It is.
The motivation seems to be kind of built in.
Right.
And you're getting that real world language exposure.
You are.
So how does all this help you improve your English skills?
Okay, well, let's start with vocabulary.
Okay.
That's probably the most obvious one.
Yeah.
Because songs are full of words.
Yeah, they are.
Right. And the cool thing is that you're learning these words in context.
Yeah.
You're not just memorizing a list of random words.
Right.
You're hearing them used in a meaningful way.
So they have a story attached to them.
They do. They have a story or an emotion
Mm-hmm.
or a situation.
Right.
And that makes them much easier to remember.
Because you can picture it.
You can picture it.
Yeah.
You can connect with it.
And you were saying earlier that songs are often full of like,
Idioms.
Yeah.
Phrasal verbs.
those are tricky.
They are.
Yeah.
And can be tricky to learn on their own.
Yeah.
But when you hear them in a song,
Yeah.
it's like you get the whole package.
Or
You get the meaning. You get
Yeah.
the context. You get the emotional weight.
Right.
And that makes them much more likely to stick in your memory.
And you often have themes too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like if it's a love song,
Right.
you're going to hear a bunch of words about love and relationships.
It's-
Or if it's like a song about partying,
Yeah.
you're going to learn those words.
Right. So you're learning these clusters of related vocabulary.
Yeah.
And that's really helpful because it gives you a framework for understanding those words.
Okay, so instead of trying to remember like a random word,
Yeah.
you're remembering a word that fits into this bigger picture.
Exactly. And one of the quotes from the material is, lyrics provide words and phrases within a meaningful context, making it far easier to understand and remember new vocabulary compared to learning isolated words from a list.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Right. So it's all about context.
Context, context, context.
Context is king.
Okay, what about grammar?
Okay, great.
Can singing along actually help you with English grammar?
It can. It really can.
Yeah.
And it does it in a really natural way.
That-
Because when you listen to song lyrics,
Yeah.
you're being exposed to authentic English sentence structures.
Okay.
Verb tenses, contractions, different grammatical forms.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like you're sitting there studying grammar rules.
Right.
You're hearing it in action.
You're just absorbing it.
You're absorbing it.
Yeah.
You're seeing how these structures work in real life.
Okay.
And that's so much more effective than just memorizing rules from a textbook.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about internalizing those patterns
Yeah.
without even really thinking about them.
It's like learning by osmosis again.
Exactly. It's like osmosis for your grammar skills.
Yeah.
The study guide that we looked at
Mm-hmm.
actually makes a really good point about this.
Okay.
It says, lyrics showcase authentic English sentence patterns, including questions, commands, statements often in more natural conversational forms than textbooks provide.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. So you're getting this exposure to real-world grammar,
Yeah.
and that's invaluable.
So you're getting the patterns
The patterns.
and the structures without having to like memorize rules.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it so effective.
Okay, and then there's listening comprehension.
Yes.
I imagine that's a pretty big one.
It's huge. Yeah.
Because you're listening to something in English.
Right. And not only are you listening,
Yeah.
but you're actively trying to understand the words,
Yeah.
which is exactly what listening comprehension is all about.
Right.
Right. It's not just about hearing the sounds.
It's about processing them.
It's about processing them
Yeah.
and making meaning out of them.
Yeah.
And music is a fantastic way to train your ear to do that.
So how does it train your ear?
Well, for one thing, you're getting used to hearing words sung,
Okay.
which can be different from hearing them spoken.
Right.
Sometimes the pronunciation's a little different.
Yeah.
The rhythm is different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an extra challenge for your ears.
It's like a workout for your ears.
It is. It's like a workout for your listening muscles.
Okay.
And the more you listen,
Yeah.
the stronger those muscles get.
Yeah.
And you're also getting exposed to different accents,
Right.
which is so important because English is spoken all over the world.
Right.
And there's a huge variety of accents.
And if you only ever hear one accent,
Right.
then you're going to struggle when you hear a different one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So music gives you this opportunity to hear all these different ways that English can sound.
So you're building up your tolerance.
Yeah, your tolerance, your flexibility, and your understanding.
Okay. And what about connected speech?
Connected speech is how we link words together when we speak.
Right.
And it's something that learners often struggle with.
Yeah, because the words are all mushed together.
They are. They're all smushed together.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to hear the individual words.
Yeah. Especially if you're not used to it.
Exactly.
So how does music help with that?
Well, music is full of connected speech
Okay.
because singers often have to fit a lot of words into a certain amount of time.
Right.
So they naturally link those words together.
So you get exposed to it without even realizing it.
You do.
Okay.
And the more you listen,
Yeah.
the more your ear starts to pick up on these patterns,
Okay.
and you start to understand how words connect together in natural speech.
So it's like training your ear
It is
to hear those connections.
Yeah, to recognize them
Okay.
and to understand them.
And then there's also the issue of speed, right?
Oh, yeah, speeds is big
Yeah,
one.
because some songs are super fast.
Some songs are like a runaway train.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
music is a great way to train your ear to handle different speeds.
So like if you start with slower songs
Right.
and then gradually work your way up
Yeah.
to faster songs.
Then your ear will adjust,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to understand faster speech more easily.
So it's like building up your speed tolerance.
It is.
Okay, so it's like a listening comprehension gym.
It is.
Music.
Music is your listening comprehension, Jim.
I like that.
Get your workout in. Build those listening muscles.
Okay, so we've talked about vocabulary, grammar, listening comprehension.
Right.
What about pronunciation?
Oh, pronunciation.
That seems like another one where music could be really helpful.
That's incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, when you sing along to a song,
Yeah.
you're essentially mimicking the sounds that the singer is making.
Right. You're trying to sound like them.
You're trying to imitate their pronunciation.
Yeah.
And this is a really effective way to practice.
Because you're hearing it.
You're hearing it
Yeah.
and you're trying to reproduce it. And
Yeah.
the more you do that,
Yeah.
the better your pronunciation will become.
You training your mouth.
You're training your mouth muscles
Yeah.
to make those English sounds.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're also paying attention to things like stress and intonation,
Yeah.
which we talked about earlier.
Right. How our voices rise and fall, where we put the emphasis in a word.
Yeah.
And this is so important for sounding natural when you speak English.
Okay, so it's not just about pronouncing the individual sounds correctly.
No, it's about the whole musicality of the language.
Yeah, like the rhythm and the flow.
Exactly.
Okay.
And music helps you develop that naturally.
And you were saying something about like physically training the muscles.
Yeah, this is really cool. When
Yeah.
you sing,
Yeah.
you're actually using a lot of the same muscles that you use when you speak.
Really?
Yeah. So by singing,
Yeah.
you're essentially giving those muscles a workout,
Like a vocal workout.
a vocal workout, exactly.
Okay, so you're getting a workout and you're enjoying yourself.
That's the best kind of workout.
Exactly.
It's fun and it's effective.
Okay, and finally, speaking fluency.
Okay, speaking fluency.
How does music contribute to that?
Well, first of all, singing can help you build confidence
Okay.
because it's a less intimidating way to practice speaking English.
Right, like nobody's judging you.
Exactly. You're just singing along to a song.
Yeah.
You're not having a conversation.
Right.
So there's less pressure.
Yeah.
And that can help you feel more comfortable using your voice.
Okay.
And the more comfortable you feel,
Yeah.
the more fluent you'll sound.
Right.
And music also helps you develop a better flow in your spoken English
Okay, how so?
because you're internalizing these rhythms and patterns from the music,
Right.
and that translates to your spoken language.
So you kind of absorb that natural rhythm.
You do.
Yeah.
And it makes your speech sound more natural and fluent.
And songs often have
Phrases.
yeah, like useful phrases.
Yeah, like little chunks of language that you can actually use in real conversation.
Okay.
So it's not just about the overall flow.
Right.
It's about picking up these little gems of language.
Yeah, like little snippets of real conversation.
Exactly. And then you can kind of like plug them into your own speech.
So you're learning these building blocks.
You are.
Yeah.
And then you can use them to build your own sentences and conversations.
Okay, so it's not just passive learning.
No, it's active.
It's actually like building your speaking skills.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so effective.
Okay, so we talked about how music affects memory, emotion, and gives you this real-world language.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how it can actually improve your specific English skills,
Right.
like vocabulary, grammar, all that.
All those good things.
But we touched on this idea of culture earlier.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah.
explore that a little bit deeper.
Okay.
How does music connect you to different cultures?
Well, as we discussed earlier, songs are more than just entertainment.
Right.
They're like little time capsules of culture.
Okay.
They capture the values, the beliefs, the trends, the struggles of a particular time and place.
So they're almost like historical documents in a way.
They are. They're like a window into a different world.
And how does that work for English specifically?
Well, English is spoken in so many different countries
Right.
all over the world.
Yep.
And each of those countries has its own unique culture and history.
Right.
And that's reflected in their music.
Okay.
So by listening to music from different English-speaking cultures,
Yeah.
you're getting a glimpse into their world.
Okay.
You're learning about their values, their traditions, their concerns.
And like, how do you actually see that in the lyrics?
Well, think about the themes that come up in certain genres of music.
Okay.
Like, for example, the briefing document mentioned American country music
Yeah.
and how it often reflects themes of patriotism,
Right.
hard work, family values.
Yeah.
And these are all values that are deeply rooted in American culture.
Right.
So by listening to country music,
Yeah.
you're not just learning about music.
Right.
You're learning about America
Yeah.
and what it means to be American.
And it mentioned British punk rock,
Oh, yeah, punk rock.
which is totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Punk rock is all about rebellion,
Yeah.
social commentary,
Yeah.
challenging the status quo,
Yeah.
and that reflects a different set of cultural values.
Right.
So by listening to punk music,
Yeah.
you're getting a different perspective on English culture.
And what about specific songs?
Oh, yeah, there are so many great examples.
Like what?
Well, the briefing document mentioned a couple,
Yeah.
like Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind,
Yeah.
which became an anthem for the civil rights movement in the United States.
Right.
So that song gives you a glimpse into a really important period in American history.
Yeah. And the struggles that people were going through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's U2's Sunday Bloody Sunday,
Yeah.
which reflects on the conflict in Northern Ireland,
Right.
the Troubles, as they were called.
Yeah.
So that song gives you a window into a very different cultural and political landscape.